Howdy and welcome to the Strange West Podcast. This is your host and word hustler extraordinaire, Trent Tano. Leading us in as always with their rendition of Eno Morricone's For a Few Dollars More is the mighty Mitch Polzak and the Royal Deuces. If you like your guitar slingers like you like your gunslingers, then head on over to mitchpolzak.com. That's Mitch, Polzak.com. And we continue the Cowboys versus Nazi action in Chapter 10 of Paris High Noon by yours truly, Trent Tano. You can pick up a copy today at parishighnoon.com. Both paperback and ebook available at parishighnoon.com. Paris High Noon t-shirts and sweaters are also available at society6.com/Trentano. Both Paris High Noon and the mustache t-shirts are available at society6.com/Trentano. And once again, a big thanks to James K. Doyle for lending us his time and his talent to the podcast. He's really bringing Paris High Noon to life. And without further ado, here is Chapter 10 of Paris High Noon.
Chapter 10, Posse in Black. Lieutenant Hauf sat in the back of the open-top Kubelwagen while his SS posse drove down the narrow dirt road that cut through the bocage. Up ahead, his motorcycle escort created a thick dust cloud. Even though he was wrapped up in a white neckerchief with dust goggles, Hauf felt like he was breathing in tons of dirt as they sputtered along to where the abandoned French army truck had been found. A few days ago, a Wehrmacht patrol had passed it by, but didn't bother stopping since there were thousands of abandoned military vehicles scattered all over the Norman countryside. The next day, they passed it again, this time noticing the carrion birds circling over a wheat field across from the truck. Hauf was interrogating Skunk with a rubber hose when he got the report. About the only useful information obtained was the ambulance ruse. The search was on, but so far nothing had turned up, which left Hauf with a desire to beat someone. When Hauf got word of the dead bodies in the truck, he decided to wash his hands of Skunk, giving the Judas a hemp necktie for when he saw St. Peter. Hauf wasn't a cruel man by nature, but the nature of his job brought out the malice that lays skin deep in all of God's creatures. The young SS man had ambition and proved himself useful in rounding up Jews and communists during the early days of the Third Reich. It wasn't easy, but then again it wasn't hard. When Hauf got assigned to hunt down the old cowboy, he knew that a promotion would be his reward and went about his task in a meticulous Teutonic manner. Only the old cowboy was proving harder to catch than a frightened Jew or a self-righteous communist. The Kubelwagen stopped, and Hauf got out before the dust settled. A gaggle of black-clad SS gunfighters stood guard over the truck. Crows and ravens cawed at the intrusion, their bellies fat with carnage. An SS sergeant came up to Hauf and saluted. "Sir, we have cordoned off the immediate area, taken an inventory of the truck, and questioned the surrounding farmers." The man clicked his heels and handed Hauf a dispatch folder. Hauf returned the salute. "Take me to the bodies." They walked out to the middle of the wheat field, which had turned a ripe golden brown. Each body had a soiled white sheet over it. One by one, Hauf knelt down and pulled back the sheets. The men's eyes had been plucked out and their lips chewed off. Although the critters had filled their bellies, there was enough flesh for Hauf to tell that the French soldiers had been murdered. Some quickly, others cruelly. All dead, nevertheless. "Anything taken from the truck?" Hauf said. "Whatever wasn't bolted down is gone," the SS sergeant said. "But we did find 4 sets of shackles in a ditch. They were probably carrying prisoners who were able to slip out and kill the guards." Hauf chewed on the notion for a while. Maybe they had help. "Let's not assume anything," Hauf said with the correct amount of arrogance in accordance to his rank. "Have the dead men identified. Find out which outfit they belong to and why they were on this stretch of road. Time for that fat Inspector Martin to be useful to us. Hauf walked out of the field and back to the truck. The SS sergeant followed and pointed out the faded tracks at the edge of the road. They went into the bocage. And the SS sergeant pointed to the hilly woods of the Collines de Pourchet. Lost them. Hauf looked on with contempt. That's not the answer I'm looking for, Sergeant. And with that, the Greenhorn SS lieutenant walked out into the wild. There were about a half a dozen tracks, and the trail they made at first looked like a herd of buffalo had busted through the thorny bramble of the hedgerows. But as the bocage gave way to the wooded hills, one by one the imprints of shoe leather thinned and disappeared. Hauf backtracked a couple of yards, then walked in a wide arch to the west and further up the forest to see if he could intercept the trail again. When that didn't work, he tried it again, this time going east. That turned up dry, so he tried again. When Hauf came back to the road 4 hours later, a thick film of sweat, dirt, and frustration covered him from head to toe. I want this whole country searched, he commanded. Turn over every goddamn stone and log until we find these outlaws. The SS sergeant saluted but didn't move. Sir, we're going to need more men. Hauf grimaced. To get more men, he would have to call his superiors for help. He wanted to be the one to catch the old cowboy and his band of brigands. He could already feel the iron cross on his proud chest. It's just one old cowboy and a bunch of thieves wandering in the woods, Hauf said. If this outfit can't find them, then maybe it will be of more use back east. The SS sergeant didn't reply. France was an easy duty for the most part. The French were more than willing to hand over any Jew or anyone else on Hitler's shit list to be shipped across the Rhine. Back east, things were a bit tougher. Hauf and his SS posse searched the eastern edges of the Collines de Pourchet, kicking down doors, busting into barns, and stepping on necks with their jackboots. By the evening of the second day, word reached Hauf that the stables of Chateau de Medevey had been rustled. Hauf drove all night to the outskirts of Argentan, where an angry Prussian general greeted him. About time USS showed up, the general said. He was hotter than a branding iron and hopping like a manic flea. Hauf snapped his heels and saluted. Sir, I am SS Obersturmführer Hauf and am in charge of the search for the old cowboy who shot down 6 soldiers in Paris. I have reason to believe that this crime is connected. The general looked at Hauf like a child who had spoken out of turn. Of course it was that old son of a bitch who stole my horse and saddle, knocked out my guards, and made a laughingstock of me and my command. Who did you think it was, de Gaulle? Hauf opened his mouth to retort, then closed it. Soon the Wehrmacht and the old Prussians who commanded it would be pushed aside by units like the Waffen-SS, commanded by officers like Hauf. Until then, it was best to keep his tongue in check. A Wehrmacht captain ran up to where the general and Hauf stood. Sir, we've searched up and down the river and can't find any tracks. The general didn't like the answer and showed it by muttering a few words unbecoming of his rank. He turned to Hauf and said in a mocking tone, Good thing Himmler's boys are here to take up the chase. If you're as good at hunting down brigands as you are at flushing out Jews, then this old cowboy shouldn't be a problem. I want my horse and saddle back. Otherwise, I'll ask Berlin to send someone with a bit more competence in the matter. With that, the general and his men left the field to Hauf, who was a bit shaken. He loathed the idea of someone else taking over even more than he loathed having the general dress him down and make him look like a fool. Hauf ordered his SS posse to fan out along the Orme River, but he discovered, to his horror, that the general's men had driven up and down its muddy banks in their feverish drive to find the rustled horses. The soldiers had destroyed any tracks that Hauf might have used. So he split his outfit in two, one going north and the other south, where Hauf had a feeling the old cowboy had gone. At the foot of the Collines de Normandy and the rugged Andanes forest, Hauf stopped. Further south, the country rolled down along the Sarthe River towards the wide, deep Loire, the river that separated the occupied north and Vichy. Hauf didn't like making assumptions, but all the evidence pointed to the old cowboy and his crew having stolen the horses and rode hell-bent for Vichy. There was nothing left in the occupied north for him or the others. Berlin might not like it, but for now the only thing Hauf could do was cable his bosses and get permission to continue his search south. Since Vichy liked to consider itself Free France, his jurisdiction ran out south of the Loire. Until then, Hauf and his SS posse would hang around the Norman countryside, just in case his hunch was wrong.
And welcome back to the Strange West podcast. This is your host and word hustler extraordinaire, Trent Tano. And that about does it for the Cowboys versus Nazi action in the end of Chapter 10 of Paris High Noon by yours truly, Trent Tano. Can't wait to find out what happens next? Then download a copy at parishighnoon.com, or if you prefer the paperback, go to parishighnoon.com. Don't forget that Paris High Noon and Mustache t-shirts and sweaters are available at thebrucesociety6.com/TrentTano. And a big thank you to James K. Doyle for lending us his time and his talent to the podcast, really bringing Paris High Noon alive. And leading us out, as always, with their rendition of Eno Marconi's For a Few Dollars More, is the mighty Mitch Polzak and the Royal Deuces. Check them out at mitchpolzak.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Happy trails.